All right, let's dive into the story of Hungary's economy in 2024. And it's a real head scratcher. Because on the surface, you see one thing, but when you start to peel back the layers and look at the data, well, that's where a completely different and frankly more concerning picture starts to emerge. Let's break down this economic paradox. So, how is this even possible, right? How can an economy look like it's recovering and at the exact same time be flushing all these warning signs of a deep structural problem? That's the core puzzle we're going to unpack today. We'll look at the numbers that feed both sides of this story, from rising wages to some really worrying trends in investment and education. So let's kick things off with the good news, because for households, it's actually pretty great. In 2024, after a really tough time with high inflation, net real wages shot up by a whopping 9.2%. What that means is people's paychecks could buy a lot more stuff, and that really started to fuel a sense of, okay, maybe things are getting better. But, and you knew there was a but coming, right? This quote from a recent economic analysis tells a totally different story. It basically says that underneath those nice wage numbers, the whole engine of Hungary's economic model might be sputtering. We're talking about fundamental long-term problems. And this is the core duality we need to get our heads around. Okay, so first up, let's look at that good news side of the coin. What's driving this feeling of recovery? Well, it all comes down to one thing. People are out there spending money again. And check this out, because this is where it gets really interesting. The overall economy, the GDP, only grew by a pretty tiny 0.5% in 2024. But look at household consumption. It jumped 3.5%. That tells you pretty much the entire story of growth right there. It was almost all driven by regular people spending more money thanks to those higher real wages we just saw. This really shows you the two-faced nature of the economy right now. The parts that sell directly to you and me, shops, restaurants, tourism, all those services, that whole sector was doing great. But the parts that actually make things, the productive engines like industry and agriculture, they were actually shrinking. It's like one part of the economy is in the fast lane and the other is stuck in traffic. All right, so now it's time to pull back the curtain. Let's talk about those cracks in the foundation, because they raise some serious questions about how long this consumption-fueled good feeling can actually last. And boom, this number is a real wake-up call. This is the drop in what's called gross fixed capital formation. Basically, it's the money businesses and the government are pumping into the future. New factories, new tech, new buildings. An 11% drop? That is a huge red flag. We're talking about investment levels hitting a 7-year low. So what's going on? Why did investment just fall off a cliff? Well, the data shows it was kind of a perfect storm. There were fewer EU funds coming in, the state was placing fewer orders, businesses were nervous about the future, and on top of all that, borrowing money was really expensive. The bottom line is, both the desire and the ability to invest for the future just took a massive hit. And of course, when investment dries up, it hits the country's main economic engines hard. Industrial production fell by 4% in Hungary. And look, that's way worse than the EU average of a 2.4% drop. This was especially a problem for the big export industries, which tells us that weaker demand from other countries, especially Germany, is also a really big headwind. Okay, this next part, this might just be the most important piece of the entire puzzle. It's what analysts are really worried about for the long run. We're talking about human capital, or to put it simply, the skills and education of the Hungarian people. And this quote right here, it really sets a worrying tone. PISA, if you don't know, is this huge international test that measures how well 15-year-old students can apply what they've learned in the real world. And for Hungary, the latest results weren't just a little bad. They were called a historic decline, especially in math. Just how bad is it? Well, take a look at this. We're talking about over a quarter, more than 1 in every 4 15-year-olds being considered functionally illiterate. Now, this doesn't mean they can't read a single word. It means they struggle to do things like understand a bus schedule, make sense of a work contract, or calculate a discount in a store. Just think about the implications of that for the future workforce. And this challenge doesn't stop at high school. I mean, just look at this comparison. It's really stark. The share of young adults in Hungary with a university degree is way behind the EU average. And here's the kicker. Hungary isn't just behind. The gap is actually getting wider. And here's something that makes it even more complicated. The education system isn't just struggling overall. It's actually making inequality worse. Basically, if you come from a poorer background in Hungary, your chances of succeeding in school are way, way lower than in most other developed countries. The system isn't acting like a ladder to help people climb up. So let's try to bring this all together. We've got these two completely different stories playing out at the same time. On one hand, you've got this consumer-led recovery that feels good in the short term. On the other, you've got these deep structural problems that are a real threat to the future. This table really lays it all out, doesn't it? You've got the human capital problem with the bad school results. You've got investment hitting a 7-year low. You've got a demographic issue with a fertility rate that's way too low. And it all points to an economic model that's kind of stuck in the mud, caught between consumption and production. And the scary part is, these aren't problems that are just going to go away on their own. They're built into the very structure of the economy. Which leads us to the big, unavoidable question at the end of all this. Is all this new consumer spending just papering over the massive cracks in the foundation? Is the good feeling today being paid for by sacrificing what's truly needed for a healthy future? Investment in businesses, in infrastructure, and most of all, in people? Based on everything we've seen, that's a question Hungary can't afford to ignore.